part 3, the resurrection of the Blue Moose build. As you can see, the shop's a little different. We've got the Knuckle Buster in here, sporting the 37s, and the Blue Moose, sporting the 30s. So, to recap the last couple of days, I was starting to put this front end back together with the correct ring and pinion, and I did a little bit of math and found out that this front end has 307 gears. Do you know how pissed I was when I found that out? So, now we're on plan B. We're going to take the welded front end out of this truck, and the plan was already to take the rear end out. And then we're going to put them in here. But, as you can see, I've got the 30s on it, and the hood's off. We're getting ready to pull the big block out because my uncle's on the way over delivering my 355. So, he should be here any minute. So, after we unload that, I'll check back in with you guys. She is finally home. I am so excited for this engine to be home and almost ready to go into this truck. But, before we do, I've got to change the harmonic balancer because my uncle marked out where TDC was, and this is where the mark was on the harmonic. So, I'm going to put this one on, and then it'll be ready to drop in the truck. But I figured I would give a little bit of the background of this engine and why this is so special to me, this 355. So, this year will be the 6th year since my grandfather, who has now passed, gave me this block, and before that it sat for decades in his garage, just sitting there doing nothing. And growing up, I was always just amazed by it, and I loved it just because I was just a little gearhead at the time. And one day I said, "Gramps, what are you going to do with that block?" He said, "Well," he said, "if you want it, you can have it, as long as you're not going to go and sell it and make money, and you're going to use it one day." So, I wrapped it in a trash bag, and I put it in a barn for 3 years, saving it for the perfect project. And 2 years ago, the Jeep, the trench tractor, blew up the 383 that it had. I did that. And had this block, and my uncle had a sweet forged rotating assembly with H-beam rods, high dome pistons. I mean, it was a pretty top-of-the-line rotating assembly he gave me a smoking deal on. So, with that motor being blown up in the Jeep, we took the rotating assembly, this block, some heads I had, and we put the motor together to get back to a mud bog a month after I blew it up. Well, turns out, after that mud bog, it ate the cam, so I took it all back apart, and I bought a new cam for it. I took the heads off the 383 that were just stock cast iron heads, but they've been decked, ported, polished, everything. Bigger valves, bigger springs. I mean, they're pretty good heads. So put those on with a solid roller cam, and I ran it in this truck for half a season until I bent the frame. I took it out, I put it in the Jeep, and that's where it lived until about, I don't know, till last September when I rolled it over. So, we pulled that engine out, put it in my Uncle Tim's truck, because this engine's always been a reliable engine. This thing always starts up, it runs, there's no problems. I mean, it is awesome. It amazes so many people that it's just, the thing purrs. So, put it in my uncle's truck, and that's when the real shitty stuff started to happen. It kept bending the push rods. We couldn't figure out why. So we put the correct length push rods in it, brought it to a mud bog, and it bent a bunch of push rods again, and ended up smoking the lifters and the cam out of it. So last fall we were headed down to a short block, and I bought these Dart Iron Eagle heads off a buddy Aaron of ours. I bought a better solid roller cam for it, and these heads are a big upgrade compared to the other heads, so it should flow a lot better. And not to mention, they got smaller combustion chambers, which means this engine went from probably a 13.5 to 1 compression 355. It's now up to 15 to 1 compression. And I tell you what, this, you can notice it when this thing turns over and it revs. This thing sounds great. It is a powerhouse. It always has been, but I'm excited to try it with this new top end on it. That's why we're throwing this truck together right now. So, I don't know, it's never been dynoed. I've never had any of my engines dynoed, but I would have to say, with the components this has in it, it has to be, I would say, at least 500 horse. Don't quote me on it. Like I said, I've never had it on the dyno, but if I had to guess, it's at least 500 or maybe 550. And it's a quick revving, it's a solid roller, high compression 355. Small cubic inch compared to other small blocks that I've raced with, but this motor, just because of my grandfather and him passing away, this motor is very sentimental to me, so it makes me so happy to put it in this truck and be able to run it again. I don't know, once we put the big block back in this truck, I'm not sure what the plan is for this motor. It's probably going to be put in a bag and we'll put in this parts room and put in storage so it doesn't get harmed until I need it. But for now, it's going to go in this truck, and I think it's going to make this rusty old short bed move, I think. It should be pretty interesting with this Turbo 350. So, I'm going to get the harmonic on it and get it ready to go in the truck, and stay tuned, I'll be right back. She's suspended in the air, ready to go in, but even with these little tires, still maxes out the engine crane, so looks like I'm going to have to get in there and pick it up and set it in there. Well, it's official. Engine is bolted in. Motor mount bolts are in. Bell housing bolts are in. And now, I can't say we're on the home stretch yet, but we're getting there. So now I think the next project is to change the front end, then the rear axle. Then I can put my drive shafts in, torque converter bolts, and just kind of work my way from the bottom up. Then that way everything underneath the truck will be done. Then I can work on figuring out the front dress that I'm going to use, top everything off on the engine, mount my shifter, seat, and then get everything buttoned up.